recording it. I need to record
Are
this for
nothing
YouTube.
without the women and men that give them
Bruh.
meaning. We need new heroes.
That HRY's wronged him. First, by creating the machine that
We 3 minutes in, it won't be bad going backwards. It won't be bad.
For the
if
last
we
few
went
months,
backwards. Nah. Alright, YouTube. We reacting to this FNAF video I saw earlier while I was in the car out, which I don't like going out. But I saw. And yeah. Anyways, we're watching it, we're reacting, and yeah. Yeah, no.
Nigga, I'm back to the brand new. You ain't got a clue, nigga. Don't hate that poppin'. I don't be coppin'. I'm from the new age. You're engaged. Don't talk with it. I got my time. Then still live back with it. Whole new level. And shit, my devil. Yeah. Hey.
Alright.
For the last few months, I've been digging through every single FNAF game, wiki site, Reddit post, and YouTube comment to try to get every
Comments,
single
bro.
piece of concrete
That go
lore from
crazy.
these games and the Scott Games website up
Comments are
until
crazy.
Ultimate Custom Night. We then took that lore and made a timeline. And without any further ado, that's what we'll be presenting today. The ultimate pre-help wanted, games only, Five Nights at Freddy's
you can only go
timeline. Just to
down.
be
I
clear,
expect
when
that
a
to
game
go a bit
occurs,
higher,
I'll
but
point it out and the
you
logo
can.
will be in the corner. If I don't specifically point out a game and put the logo in the corner, I'm not talking about that game. Looking at you commenters who always think when I say Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, I mean FNAF 1, even though there's like 4 different Freddy Fazbear's Pizzas. Now slices. Put on your aprons, and let's finally bake ourselves a theory. So pop your mixture into the oven, and let's see what kind of horrors rise. We begin with two business moguls, William Afton and someone who goes by the codename HRY223. They each have their own separate ventures, but eventually they collaborate on the restaurant Fredbear's Family Diner, a restaurant with
Bro, it's because he doesn't like, since he's like doing it at first starting just pinning things and getting the thing game only. It was never set in the game that Henry's name was Henry. The music this right here is from FNAF 6. And it was named HR322Y or whatever. So it's Henry Emily. Or Henry. And we found out Henry's daughter is Charlie, and Bill Charlie's gravestone said Charlie Emily, meaning Henry's real name is Henry Emily, and the purple dude is William Afton, because they said that in game. They said William's name in game, at least William, or Mr. Afton. They said Mr. Afton in game, so William.
state-of-the-art spring-lock suits, allowing otherwise robotic performers to be worn by employees to walk around the pizzeria. They can be very dangerous, and if overused or wet, the spring locks inside can snap shut, crushing whoever's inside. The star animatronics at Fredbear's Family Diner was Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, both created by HRY223, and they saw meteoric success. So much so that they eventually created an offshoot restaurant, mostly comprised of the side characters from Fredbear Family Diner. It was called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and starred Freddy Fazbear, Chica, Bonnie, and Foxy. William Afton had a sizable family. Himself, presumably a wife we don't see, his youngest son, his oldest son Michael, and his middle daughter Elizabeth. All we know about HRY223's family is that he had a daughter. William is lost in his work. To remedy this, he creates a bunker in between his house and Fredbear's Family Diner, such so that he can keep an eye on things going around, operate the animatronics, and still watch over his children. In particular, his youngest son, who seems to have some trouble socially. He created these Fredbear plushes to be able to talk to his son throughout the day as Fredbear, seeing as his son does see the characters as his friends. However, even though the son considers the characters friends, he's terrified of the animatronics, most likely due to him seeing a worker being put into a spring-lock suit. In the eyes of a child, that looks crazy. William knows he has this fear, so he feeds into it a little bit to keep him away from the spring-lock suits, although it backfires, and now the child is terrified of all things animatronic, a fact that his older brother seems to tease him relentlessly about. In fact, the other children around town tease him for the same thing, but one unfortunate day, the bullying goes too far. Michael Afton and a few of his friends pick up the youngest son, bring him over to the Fredbear animatronic, and place his head in the mouth of it. What began as a mean-spirited tease turned fatal because Fredbear's jaw clamped shut due to either the animatronic programming or the tears causing the spring locks inside to clamp. The youngest son is brought home and put on an IV drip, laying in bed in a coma. Michael apologizes to him while he's in this state. William promises to put him back together, but so far he has no idea how. Fredbear's gets shut down, and the Springlock suits are moved to a safe room in the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location. To prevent more accidents like this, HRY creates the security puppet, something to watch over his daughter specifically, but also just to keep the children safe. The Fredbear's that closed down gets bought up and turned into a bar called Junior's. William begins to drink, falling into a drunken stupor. He starts to lose himself, wants to somehow right the wrongs that were done to his son, and eventually, the youngest son dies. And that sends William over the edge. He wants revenge for his son. But William can't do that so long as the security puppet remains there. He knows that HRY would never take down the security puppet, but in his eyes, this is the second time that HRY has wronged him. First, by creating the machine that killed his son, and second, by denying him his rightful vengeance. Drunkenly, he drives to the Freddy Fazbear Pizza, and he sees HRY's daughter locked outside. Taking the opportunity, and knowing the security puppet would eventually chase after her, he kills her, leaving her in the alleyway and drunkenly driving home. The security puppet does eventually inch its way towards her in the rain, short circuits, and collapses on her. It's at this moment that HRY's daughter possesses the puppet. William then drives home. His wife warns him to keep away from his eldest son, Michael, as he's had a rough day, but he demands to see his son. His son that's being kept in by a stationed animatronic outside. It doesn't do much, but he's hopeful that the sight of it will be enough to keep him inside and scare him in bed. But when he goes around back to check the window, he finds it broken and just footprints left behind. The animatronic didn't work, and Michael snuck off to that place again. The mound in the woods, the entrance to William's secret bunker. William wants to keep him away from there for several reasons. It controls so much, it has cameras everywhere, but obviously the animatronic outside his window didn't work. So when he comes back, he'll make him sorry by moving him into a room without windows and without doors that lock. And he begins tormenting him every night from that bunker, unlocking the access to the animatronics and cameras with the code 1983, the very year that his youngest son died, partially from the hands of his oldest son. Note, I want to be clear, this isn't the FNAF 4 gameplay. I think William is doing this with the animatronics that he already has. However, these actions do create the FNAF 4 gameplay, because this torment that he puts Michael through gives Michael long-standing nightmares from here on out, where he relives these experiences even when not sleeping there, with nightmarish, illusionary versions of the animatronics that were sent after him. Now, with no obstacles, William takes his revenge. He dons the spring Bonnie suit even though management specifies that it's unsafe, and he begins leading children into the safe room. The first with Susie as she's playing Fruity Maze, and he convinces her that her dog actually isn't dead and that he's in the back room. She was then stuffed into the Chica animatronic. Then, in no knowable order, the same is done to Gabriel into Freddy, Fritz into Foxy, Jeremy into...
I need to get my thing. Hold on. I gotta get the glasses.
To Bonnie and another unnamed child into the only
glasses.
suit left hanging around, the very same suit that his son was killed by, the Fredbear suit. At this point, the police begin snooping around. 5 children have gone missing. To throw them off the trail and to cover his own tracks, and in one final act of revenge, William frames HRY-223 for the 5 missing children. They never find the body, but according to the newspapers, a suspect was convicted. HRY-223 goes to prison, and the whole ordeal becomes known as the Missing Children Incident, going down in Fazbear infamy. Freddy Fazbear's closes down, and it's at this point that HRY's daughter, via the puppet, starts to shepherd the souls of those 5 children into the suits that they were stuffed in, so that they can continue to live in some form and not be lost. But William starts to notice this. He sees the suits twitching and moving erratically. Suddenly, he has a lead on how he might be able to bring his own son back, but he needs to experiment more. He needs more test subjects. He opens up Freddy Fazbear's Pizza again, but this time to help with PR and investors, he creates state-of-the-art toy animatronics animatronics with facial recognition systems,
He's
things they
so-
can scan to make sure criminals stay out.
He's saying
Notably,
William made the
William
toys
isn't
and
on
not
any criminal
Henry, just
database,
Henry.
but HRY is. He wants to see if he can take this possession effect and transfer it, so he uses parts from the old animatronics that are possessed and puts them into the toy animatronics, something borrowed, something new.
Yeah,
It's a
toys
rudimentary
did
form
have
of
part of the
remnant injection,
old
which we will
wizards.
get into. Attempting to lay low, he gets a job at the pizzeria as a night shift worker, but quickly
Okay, y'all, this genius shopping trip will get you the best price available for your gaming gear.
transfers to the day shift. Here is where the gameplay of Fnaf 2 begins, and we see the perspective of a worker recently slotted into William's old position as things start to go wrong. As William continues to tamper with these animatronics, putting more pieces of the old animatronics in them, they become more erratic, more violent. The facial recognition system starts to glitch and not work correctly. Eventually it gets too dangerous for even William, so he puts on the Spring Bonnie suit to try to control them. And at that point, they go haywire. The pizzeria has to shut down and an investigation begins. At this point, the heat is too high and William flees. The phone guy warns us, the player, that there's one more scheduled party and asks us to just go to day shift and keep an eye on the animatronics to make sure that they don't hurt anyone. But we can't control anything, and that party results in the Dead Child incident, where the toy animatronics, fully corrupted, lash out, and 5 children die at the pizzeria. It's during this party that the Bite of 87 happens.
That
The
is
FNAF
true.
2 location shuts down, the toy animatronics are scrapped, but the old ones are held onto. As tragic as an event as that was, William learned that he was right. Moving metal that has soul attached to it into a new piece of machinery transfers the soul with it. He just needed to find out the perfect way to recreate that. If he could do that, he could try to transfer the Fredbear suit that killed his son into something and see if he could recreate his son, finally putting him back together. He creates the Fun Times to accomplish this goal. They were designed specifically to kidnap children. That way he could get new test subjects to recreate the missing child incident and then try to transfer one Fun Time to another. But before he could ever truly test that out, the worst possible outcome occurred. During one of the test performances right before the restaurant opened up for real, his own daughter Elizabeth snuck off and got alone with Circus Baby. Circus Baby went to kidnap her,
Kinda
but something went
stomach.
wrong and
Here's
she
free
kills
ice
her.
cream.
Instead,
Jump!
Elizabeth goes on to possess Circus Baby, and the whole idea is scrapped. The Fun Times being put in the bunker. But William notices the possession that takes place in Circus Baby. He was right. It's doubled down that he is correct, but he needs test subjects. So he goes to the old scrapped toy animatronics that have part of
Hey,
the original
Freddy.
missing child incident souls in them and melts them down into as much metal as he can. He
Yo, the fact that he's doing game only and did this stuff is crazy. Cause like I like MatPat's theory. MatPat brings things out where sometimes you wouldn't expect, and that's why he gets more hate. This guy's actually like doing it.
calls that substance remnant, a mixture of a silvery,
Liquid.
liquidish metal and soul. He then injects it into the 3 remaining Fun Times, trying to get some kind of a reaction. And he does, but they're violent and erratic. He took the parts of 5 souls out from where they were into new things, melted those down into one conglomerate, and split it up. That doesn't work. And he knows that now, after using his new invention, the scooper, to inject that remnant into the animatronics. At this point, he needs to just try again. But Elizabeth is still down there, and it's too dangerous for him to go down. Who else does he have to trust, or at least can command? His own son, who he tortures on the nightly, Michael Afton. He forces him to go down to put Elizabeth back together and to free her. Then we have the gameplay of Sister Location, where Michael Afton tries to do that, but instead is tricked by Circus Baby and Ennard, an amalgamation of the innards of the Fun Times, trying to form back into as whole as they can be. Ennard then scoops Michael and uses his skin to escape. It works for a time, but eventually that skin begins to rot, and Ennard has to flee into the sewers. Michael Afton, having trace amounts of remnant left on him from the scooper, and rage and unsettled business in his own soul, possesses himself to go after his father and pledges to. But when
okay,
William
that's
went
a
down to
nice
the
way.
bunker to see what had happened after the fact,
never knew
he
how
fled
Michael
the scene
came
as
back.
well.
We just
And thus
make
began a chase.
guesses.
William needs Ennard back
Like
to
not at once, like Baby did say, "You won't die. You won't die. You won't die." But now, like, this is interesting because we have an idea on why Michael came back alive.
continue
more
testing
accurately,
and to
'cause he's doing
retrieve his
game only
daughter,
on
but he
two.
needs to avoid Michael,
Nothing
who
else with
pretty
the
much
books.
just wants to kill him. So, he creates a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, hoping that he effectively caused a fear in Michael that he would stay away, but attract Ennard and Elizabeth, things that ostensibly would want to go towards a pizzeria where Fazbear animatronics are. He takes the old animatronics from the FNAF 2 location and on a shoestring budget reopens the pizzeria again. It's dirty, it's messy, it's disgusting, frankly, but it's just enough to have the idea of a pizzeria. And he does attract some pretty big players in this plot, but not the ones that he wanted to. Michael Afton comes looking for him, and that marionette possessed by HRY's daughter comes to check as well. The puppet checks on the souls of the old animatronics to see if all is still well, and Michael is just trying to survive and hoping eventually his father might show up. This is the gameplay of FNAF 1. But when William realizes who he has attracted, he shuts down the restaurant and hopes that they leave. And when they eventually do, he goes to just take apart the old animatronics to get as much remnant out of them as he can. But once he takes them apart, the spirits corner him in a back room, and William, in a fit of desperation, puts on the old Spring Bonnie suit to try to scare them off. The Spring Bonnie suit snaps onto him, crushing him inside and killing him. He then goes on to possess it, but he's stuck back there. And thus begins a bit of a time skip. Now it's during this time that Circus Baby is eventually kicked out of the Ennard conglomerate. They have an argument and decide that she doesn't belong. So now Molten Freddy and Scrap Baby are roaming the sewers instead. These disparate pieces wander for at least 30 years or so, until eventually Phone Dude opens up a new attraction that suddenly piques some interest. A haunted house based around the Fazbear franchise, using as many authentic pieces as Phone Dude can find. Michael goes right away in the hopes that he can finally find his father, and lo and behold, on night 2, Phone Dude brings back the big one. A springlock suit found in the back of a restaurant that he just puts up in the attraction, somehow not noticing that there's a corpse inside. William Afton's corpse. Thus begins the gameplay of FNAF 3. And once Michael is sure that it is actually his father, William Afton, he sets the entire place ablaze, trying to burn it all down once and for all. He can't check the wreckage without arousing suspicion, but he hopes that his plan worked. But it didn't, and the remaining pieces are sold at auction. It's around this time that HRY223 is released from prison. It's been about 30 or so years, so a life sentence would have run up at this point. He knew something was going on due to newspaper articles he could read in prison, so he goes to the sister location bunker that William always used, and in it, he finds the blueprints for the scooper and other experiments, and
You know, this is a whole new thing of Henry being the one who was arrested for like 30 years. Because the police did catch someone in the FNAF timeline, but we never knew like who. We would guess it was William or someone else, but
and logs and notes on exactly what William has been up to. Enough is enough. HRY needs to put an end to all of this. He buys up the old closed down Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and creates the perfect trap. Something that combined what William tried and what Michael tried. A perfect replica of a pizzeria. The gameplay, a Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria Simulator. A metal labyrinth of pizza smells and children's screams. Something that should attract any wandering animatronic. Michael, seeing that Freddy Fazbear's Pizza opens up again, goes to check it out, and becomes the volunteer. Someone to help gather the animatronics, put them all in one place, and continue with HRY's plan. HRY intended this to just be some random person off the street, but once he notices that it is a dead but not dead Michael, he assumes that Michael wants to stay as well. Once what had become of Ennard, Molten Freddy, Circus Baby, Scrap Baby, William Afton, Scrap Trap, and his own daughter, the puppet now contained within Lefty, HRY burns him, them, and Michael all to the ground, finally releasing what spirits were still stuck on Earth. But it's not quite that simple. HRY's plan used a blueprint that mentioned that heat could nullify the effects, but it didn't. It just loosened the chain. Those spirits were still stuck there and needed help passing on. HRY's daughter notices this as she has been shepherding souls this whole time. She then creates Fnaf World to try and facilitate the passing on of these souls, but she needs help. William Afton's soul is there and as angry as ever. As she says in Ultimate Custom Night,
I don't hate you, but you need to stay out of my way.
So the other strongest soul present, Michael, takes up the job. He tortures his father just as his father had tortured him in life, sending animatronic after him, ripping him apart in any way he can. Reminding him that by sending Michael into the sister location bunker, he may as well have killed him himself, and Michael is not the one he should have killed. And then Michael spends the foreseeable eternity tormenting William, reminding him of his worst moments in life and his worst mistakes. And that's it. the entire FNAF timeline. If you want my evidence, there's a playlist in the cards and I'll link it at the end of the video. The playlist is like an hour and a half, so grab some popcorn. If for whatever reason you want one of these, we made a few of them.
That was really interesting.